Hello and welcome to a podcast about something. I've got Dan from the Save Point podcast back with me today as we are doing part 2 of old school video games. This is part 2 of 3. We'll have Dan back for part 3 as well. And he was here for part 1. So this is all podcasts about something and the Save Point podcast, old school video games. Dan, you want to refresh everyone's memory on what the Save Point podcast is?
Absolutely. As I said in the first time, though, that I was here, and saying it now for the second time, thank you for having me.
You'll have to say it one more time, too.
I'll have to say it one more time, absolutely. But no, thank you for having me. This has been awesome. I can't even talk now. No, this has been awesome. I listened to the first episode after you published it, and I don't know, I enjoyed it because, whatever.
It's great to hear yourself talk, right?
Yeah, it is. But as people, if you haven't listened to the first episode, first listen to the first episode. No, I am Dan. I'm from the Save Point podcast. We are just me and Steve, and we have two other people, Grace and Jesus, that help out. We're just a podcast that talks about video games and basically what's been going on in the industry that week. We kind of recap and make jokes and all of that, and have a good time. And a side note on that, we actually have passed over 450 downloads on basically, we have about 14 episodes out, and we have over 400 downloads, which is just awesome. Yeah, anybody who started up a podcast knows that this is the hard part of the grind and sticking with it and trying to build an audience. And 400 downloads and about 5 months of this, and 14 episodes, I think, is just wonderful. It's awesome. So I just thank you guys.
Yeah, that's really great. Congrats. I love listening to the pod. Anytime I can hear other people talk about video games, it's a great thing. And like we said, we're going to talk about some video games today. This is, like I said in the open, part 2 of a 3-part series. Part 1, if you haven't listened to it, it's not required listening. You can pick up right here. You can pick up there. You can even pick up in part 3 if you want. But if you didn't listen to part 1, it covered like Atari and arcade games mostly, kind of like the 80s, 90s arcade games, not necessarily the go and win tickets arcade games of today.
Well, what are you talking about? I'm making it a requirement. They have to listen to the first one.
Okay, go back and
listen. They have to download it. And if you haven't subscribed to a podcast about something, then subscribe. Also.
There we go.
So there you go.
Let's say this. It's a requirement to listen, but not in that order.
There you go. Okay. Yeah,
you have to listen to all 3 parts, but you can listen to them in any order you want.
Yep.
So today on part 2, we're covering, it's technically 3rd and 4th generation at-home consoles, but this is the big one for people in mine and Dan's age bracket that really everyone hit. The NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and we might talk a little Game Boy as well. I didn't have a Game Boy. I didn't play much of it, but I know of it.
Handheld that was out?
There was a Sega one.
Yeah, Game Gear.
Game Gear, yeah.
Which I don't think anybody owned.
I knew one kid. So we had this like summer recreation program that my mom ran, and there would be most of the kids from the small town I grew up in would be there, and there was like one kid out of maybe 100 at the thing that had a Sega Game Gear.
Mm-hmm. And what is it? It took like 16 batteries that lasted like for a half an hour. And like the screen on it was like it was so small. Like the whole thing was super big, but then the screen was so small.
The screen was about the size of an original Game Boy screen, but the device, let's call it, was about the size of a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, it was huge.
But much heavier because it's 1994 and has to take 16 batteries, like you said. That would die after an hour.
Yeah.
So there won't be a lot of Sega Game Gear talk. That was probably it.
Yeah, that's about it.
So let's jump right into it. What do you think was the best part of these 2 generations, really?
I think the best part is this is when developers, I think, started to create that curve of what video gaming was or wanted to be. Mm-hmm. I think it was always kind of like Oh, those are the nerds that have the Atari and have the old Sega Master System and have the ColecoVision and all of that. And now you're hitting something like the Nintendo, like the original NES. I mean, name somebody that didn't have an NES.
Exactly.
Everybody had one.
And when the NES Classic hit, and thank you for calling it NES and not NES, like some of these
That's the NES.
these young guns are calling it these days. They call it the NES, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? But when the NES Classic hit, it was sold out in like an hour. Like you couldn't get one.
Yeah.
There's easier and better ways to play more games, but we may not cover that.
I ended up going. I had to, on a completely unrelated thing. I ended up going to a certain store that's around everywhere, and to pick up. It was actually picking up baby formula for my daughter, and I walked past the electronic stuff, and here's this guy. This one guy has like 3 of them in his hand, and I looked at the guy. I'm like, can I please get one? The guy's looking at me like, and the clerk that was opening up the drawer was like, you know what? He goes, I can't sell you all 3. So the guy reluctantly handed me over one of them.
Nice.
So I got it. Yeah, it was. So, but no, that's how I got mine. It was kind of completely just randomly walking in.
I don't have an NES Classic. I use more legal adjacent means to get my fix, and that goes for everything up to PlayStation that we're going to talk about. I have a PS2, so I can play PS1 and PS2 games, but other than that, it's legal adjacent means that I'm not going to go into too much detail about, because I'm sure the FBI listens to this and is going to come knock on my door soon.
Knock.
FBI, if you are listening, at least subscribe.
Yeah, at least subscribe.
Give me a review on iTunes, 5 stars, and then arrest me.
So I think I think that was the biggest thing, is like video games started to become more of a common word now in households. And then we'll get into the other ones, but then you got the upgrade, and then we started the different generations of Super NES and the Sega Genesis, and then the Sega CD and N64, and moving on from there.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I agree on that. And they became more commoditized. Every kid had one. Every kid had either an NES, Super Nintendo, or a Sega Genesis. Usually they had an NES and a Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis. So it was always like everyone had an NES, and then everybody else had one or the other for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Go ahead.
No, the question actually came up in our Discord. If you want to join our Discord, just follow us, Save Point Podcast. Discord link is right there. It actually came up was, do you think that Mario would be as popular as it was if it wasn't the first Nintendo Entertainment System basically character that they pushed?
No, it absolutely would not be.
So we wouldn't have everything Mario and everybody knows Mario, and with basically Nintendo dominating the whole space until Sega decided they really wanted to beef up their game. You're saying that character could have been, we could have had.
I think whatever character you make that everybody owns, like everybody owned Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 3. Yep. So if that's Sonic the Hedgehog, it is the character that they chose, then everything Sonic Kart Racing and Sonic Tennis and everything become. So I think kind of what you were saying is whatever that character is becomes that thing, and if Mario comes later, then Mario just gets tacked onto things, kind of like Sonic does now.
Got it. Okay.
That's an interesting question. Listeners, hit us with feedback on Twitter at APA something if you think Mario would have succeeded if it wasn't the first game that everyone owned. But yeah, that's kind of what I was saying, is everybody had the NES or the SNES or the Sega Genesis, but at the same time, nobody had the same games. It was like I had my 15 games. I'd go to my friend's house. He had a different 20 games. And then you go to a third friend's house, and they had a different set of 10 games. So everybody had 3 or 4 staples. You had your Marios, your Excite Bike.
You had Zelda.
Zelda.
Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, those are like the staples that everyone had. But when you went to your friend's house, nobody played those games because you could play them at home. So you always got to experience new games when you
Uh-huh.
go to your friend's house.
Yep.
And now it's just like everybody has everybody when Destiny comes out plays Destiny.
Yep.
Um, so you got that. It was this cool thing to go to somebody's house and see what games they had and see what system they had and how it was different from yours. And the other thing that this generation of games did was it started the world building of video games. You had deeper world buildings and maps and actual playable levels that were different rather than just this square is placed in a different spot on the second map than it was in the first map, like in Atari and arcade games.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree. I agree.
So yeah, that's what I always found best about and still find best about those. And it's easy. We talked about this a lot on the first one with the arcade and Atari. You can just jump in and out of those games pretty easily. I have a Nintendo Switch, and I
Hmm.
just signed up for the online service because you get that NES Classic basically, where it's got I think it's like 30 games on there that you can play and you can save your place and everything like that. And
Which I do have to say, by far, is the most fucked up pricing for, I think, online service ever.
it was $20 for a year.
It's 20. We
Expand
covered.
on that.
I will. We got about a half an hour into it on the save point, but
Mm,
I'll kind of give you the short version of this. So if you go 1 month, it's $7. If you
yep.
go 6 months, it was like $15 or something
And
like
then the
that,
year was 20. Yeah.
and then the year was 20. But do you know about the family version?
I saw it. I didn't pick it because my
Yeah,
kids are too young to play.
yeah.
It was like
It's
$24, wasn't it?
it's $35 for the year. Okay, but you can invite anybody up to 8 people, like you and seven
Oh,
other people,
Jesus.
like anybody. All you need is their Nintendo ID. So
Yeah,
like,
so I'm sure a lot of people are doing that. I
oh
just
yeah,
paid for the $20 1 year for myself, and honestly, that was that to be able to play Super Mario and Super Mario 3 on the go. That's
yeah,
worth it to
that's
me.
true. That's true. It's
I
just
I I have my media room where I can sit and I can play those games, but to just be able to like I'm sitting on the couch and my kids are watching, Daniel Tiger for the 500th time, I can
Mhm.
pick that up and play and still be there to interact with them if I need to. I don't have to, go away into my media room to play a game for 10 minutes. That's what I like
Absolutely.
about it.
We like I said, I won't. We won't get into the discussion here.
Yeah,
But
I
if you
get what
check
you're
out,
saying on the pricing on the tiers are just they don't make sense.
it doesn't make sense on the pricing breakdown. But check out the Save Point podcast. I think it was 2 episodes back, so episode 12 we talked about it. So yeah,
There we go. That for a deeper discussion on why Nintendo Switch doesn't know how to price things, Save Point episode 12. So growing up, like I said, everybody had 1 to 3 of these systems. Which ones did you own?
I actually owned um everything except for Sega stuff.
Mm,
I didn't own the Sega Genesis. I didn't own Sega Saturn or Sega CD. But I did start out with a Nintendo entertainment system, the NES. And I don't remember if we covered this of how I received my first one.
yes, we did talk
We
about
did.
that.
Okay, so
Yep.
yeah, so check out the first one and all of that. So what happened was my brothers ended up. I have two younger brothers. They ended up receiving a Nintendo, an NES.
Mm,
And then back then there was there was the GameStop, or what GameStop would evolve into, was a place called Funkoland by me. So I don't know if it was local, and I don't know if it actually evolved into
I've never heard
GameStop,
of that.
but yeah, or local. But it basically was the same thing that GameStop was. The difference with that is they didn't sell new; they only sold used. So that was the only difference. Except for very limited things that they sell new. Um,
Yeah, those cartridges back then were a lot sturdier than like CDs. Now you go get a used game from GameStop and it's 50-50 shot on whether it's actually going to play or not sometimes.
Absolutely. So we would go in there, and basically what happened was I traded in all of my NES stuff, and I let my brothers look at the games that I had, and I ended up getting a Super Nintendo. And I started playing Super Nintendo, and that's where I got into NBA Jam and
Yeah.
all of that. And then from Super Nintendo, that's when, and we'll get into this on the next episode, that's when I kind of jumped into the PlayStation realm, and I
Right.
completely bypassed the Sega Genesis.
Yeah, me and my brother only had the NES, and I think we talked about how we came upon that in the first episode too, and we skipped over Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, and eventually got the PS1 was our next system. So we were, I mean, from probably 1992 to 1996, it was just straight Nintendo. But we had a friend down the road that had a Sega Genesis that we'd go over there and just, wear his Sega Genesis out. And then we had a family friend who their son was probably 3 years older than my brother. And they had a Super Nintendo, and he was never around because he was a teenager by this point. So he would be out, and we'd just while our parents mingled, we'd go in there and play Super Nintendo the whole time. So we got our fill of Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis
Mm-hmm.
when we were out, but at home it was just Nintendo, and we would do everything we can to figure out those games, and there's a lot of them that to this day I still haven't beat and want to revisit someday now with better knowledge of how video games work and beat them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I The only reason that I really didn't go after the Sega stuff is that I didn't know about it. So the only other person really that had more knowledge of me at the time of video games was my cousin, the one that basically gave me his old Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he was just a Nintendo supporter. He was a Nintendo freak on it. So I always kind of that was my first jump into what camp are you in?
Right.
As
Yeah.
far as the generation wars, the console wars go. So I was Nintendo the whole way, and I was just I can't, I'm not allowed to play Sega Genesis. I'm just not allowed to, type
And
sort of thing.
it wasn't like if you just had a Nintendo at that time, like you didn't have the latest and greatest. It wasn't a big deal because there were different games on each one that were fun in their own ways. Like I remember I went to a different friend's house who only had a Nintendo, and he had the track and field game, not the
Mhm.
one that's worth like tens of thousands of dollars, but like
The one with the mat.
yeah, it came with the mat, and I think this one, his was it was a three gamer. It was Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt and Track and Field. So that
Mm.
one's not worth any money, but if you had like the Track and Field just by itself, that one's worth thousands of dollars.
Yep. Yep.
But we'd go over there and play that because nobody else had the mat, so it was cool to be able to go to his house and play that. And this was even when on the verge of N64 coming out, we were still going over there and playing that game
Yep.
because it didn't matter that you didn't have the latest and greatest
Hmm.
because there were no updates or anything that you were missing out on. You were just basically it was just different games that you weren't enjoying.
I had two of them. My buddy had a regular NES. An NES, and I had an NES, and we would play Bubble Bobble
Okay, yep.
and Bad News Baseball.
I've played Bad News Baseball, but that wasn't one I had.
Yeah, we would just that would just be that was hours upon hours upon hours of Bad News Baseball.
I would
So.
always go. I had a different friend that he was the only person I knew that had Mike Tyson's Punch Out. So I'd always try whenever I'd go over there, I'd try and get as far as I
Hmm.
could in that one. I never got very far though. That was always a tough one.
Yep. Yep.
All right, so let's talk. Let's kind of break down system by system some of our favorite games and why, and like kind of why they left an impact on us. We'll just kind of go back and forth. You name a game, I'll name a game, and kind of go through it that way. I think will
Sounds
be
good.
best. Let's start with the NES. Let's not go all-time favorite game, but just kind of top five, top three in any order.
Okay.
What's one that you
Um, uh,
would that enjoy going back to or have fond memories of?
I know we've already covered this, but Legend of Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
That by far that was my first game where I can say, I guess lack for a better phrase, I got emotional with it.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's right. I remember you getting
yeah,
angry at it.
yeah. As far as that goes, but then it's I actually started really caring about my character. I really was okay, I got to get more hearts. Oh, okay, I got to make sure I do this. So it really started putting me in the mindset of, getting out of like the sports realm, because that was
Hmm.
one thing that really was pushed. My father didn't really understand video games, but he knew that I liked them, so he tried. And he's a big baseball guy, so a lot of my games that he would buy because I was too young to have money,
Uh-huh.
um, would be a lot of baseball games. So Bad News Baseball and
Did you
and
get the RBI baseball?
I had RBI Baseball. I had this
That was a
one. It
good
was
one.
like Baseball 2000, Baseball Space 2000 or whatever, and like each player had like a fun ability or
A
something like that.
superpower. Yes, that was a Super Nintendo game that I was going. It might have been on the regular Nintendo too, but I was going to talk about that when we went to Super Nintendo.
Yeah, it was on. There was one that was on the regular Nintendo. Um, so I would say that would be my second one. Would be that one because I just played the hell out of it. I really did. As far as that goes, but my first and all time one, I think um, would be Zelda, The Legend of Zelda, because
Yeah, that's a great game, and that's one I think we said it on the last one that I need to revisit. I never figured out the map when I was a kid, and I've been like for the last 10 years I've said I need to go back. I need to spend the
mm-hmm.
time on it, and I just never have. That would be one that would be good to have on the Switch for the
Yep.
on the Nintendo the NES Classic version on the Switch. Because I could probably sit there and get lost in that on my
You know,
couch
the,
for hours.
the funny thing is, the game that I've only watched people play. I've never actually started a game of it. Started a character is Link, the second one
Is
that
that
came out.
that's the second one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never played that one either. The
So.
legend, the original Legend of Zelda is my only Zelda experience. I've never played any of the other games. I
Hmm.
know a lot of them are much better, but that's like I think because I never beat that one, I've just had this block against it that I was like, okay, if I
Got
can't
it.
beat the first one, I can't go back to it.
Yep.
One of my favorites was the Ninja Turtles. It was technically Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 on the NES, which was the arcade port.
Yep.
And that's one that just recently I finally beat it because I figured out there was a cheat code to get 30 lives when you start.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So using the 30 lives cheat code, I finally beat it after 25 years or so of playing it.
Mhm.
And I I wasn't very impressed with the ending. I don't
Mhm.
remember what it is now, but I just remember like, oh, that's it.
Yeah. Congratulations,
Which,
you have won.
thank you. Yeah. But that was always fun. Like the same thing we talked about with the Ninja Turtle game in the arcade. It was fun to pick your favorite turtle and to just fight through the levels. Even though I
Go to
couldn't
town. Yep.
progress past the third or fourth level, it
Hmm.
was. I mean, Ninja Turtles was everywhere when we were kids, and it was just great to be able to live that life. Basically,
Absolutely.
that was like one of the only pop culture games that ported over to home consoles that early. Well,
Okay.
yeah, no,
Yeah, I would say so. Yep.
that there weren't really any good Batman games. I've played
No.
some of them now. None of them are very good. There was like
There
a
were
Bugs
there
Bunny game that was okay.
they had a Tiny Toons was fun too.
Yeah, I'll give you
Um,
that.
but there was a Batman game, and I think it was the movie adaptation to
Hmm.
the
Yeah, they had
who
some of
is that?
those.
Who
The
is yeah who is that one? Jack Nicholson and
Yeah, the Joker in 1989.
yeah 1989. So that one was it, and it was more of a platformer.
Yep.
Um, but you were like a small Batman, like you didn't you know your character was really small on the screen. I remember that.
Yeah, it
Um,
wasn't. There was one that I played. The best Batman game I played was that early in time. Now it's obviously the Arkham games, but
yeah.
at that time there was a Game Boy game that like my friends came down and visited from Wisconsin, and they brought their Game Boy with them, and they had. I have no idea which Batman game it was for the Game Boy, but like that was the best one that I had ever played in
Hmm.
the ability to use his different gadgets, and the platforming in it worked really well, and maybe the small stature of him didn't matter as much because the screen was so small.
Hmm.
So it never really it didn't, like you said, on the playing it on a regular TV, it seemed like you weren't capable of much, but on the Game Boy it seemed like it was capable of a lot more.
Absolutely. I would say my second game, like I just said, would probably be that. I can't even think of the name of it anymore. But it would be
There's
that baseball game. That
Yeah,
space.
I've tried finding it because that was one that like I played it one time on my friend's Super Nintendo.
Hmm.
Like me and my brother played it one time when we were over there. I have no idea what it's called, but all I remember is like you'd try and throw a pitch, and it would like turn into a leaf halfway to the batter
Yes.
and just float to him. And like I've never been able to find it. I have no idea what it's called. I've looked like there is like a Super Baseball 3000 for SNES, and like I've tried, and none of them are exactly it that I remember. So I'm glad you brought that up because that game was a lot of fun, and I've been looking for it and have never found it.
Yeah, like I remember playing. I was like the equivalent of like the White Sox,
Mm-hmm.
just because of um, just because I'm a White Sox fan. And there was the cleanup batter. His name was Brett, and when you hit B, his like superpower was that when he hit the ball, if it was fly, like it was in the air, there was like a little box that was just a whole bunch of little black dots as the shadow of the ball. But the thing with him is that he would just smash it. Like there was no like, as long as you had the power to be able to use his power, he would
Mm-hmm.
smash it out of the stadium.
Yeah,
Uh,
so there's no timing or anything involved. You
yeah,
just had to basically swing the bat sometime when the
basically
ball
swing the
was hit.
bat as the ball was close, and he just
Yeah.
smash it. I remember I would play a game just over and over and over and over. I don't even think I ever did a league. I just think I would be like, okay, start the game and let's just play. You
Yep.
know.
Well, and that's how it was there. Another one that I want to talk about is Tecmo Super Bowl. It was the same thing. You'd just jump into a game. You'd pick your team. It didn't matter which team you got, and you'd go right into it. As long as you weren't picking one of the four cheating teams in Tecmo
Hmm.
Bowl or Tecmo Super Bowl, everybody was good.
Hmm. And
There
I'm
was
trying
no
to,
skill levels.
as we're talking, I'm trying to look it up, and I put in like just the Wikipedia,
Hmm.
and there's so many NES baseball
If
games. It's
any
not even
listeners know
funny.
this game that we're talking about, where pitchers and batters had like goofy superpowers, let
Hmm.
us know. Email us, Twitter us, whatever. Let us know. We need to know what this game is.
We do. I mean, we really
It's
do.
not. I played Super Baseball 3000 or whatever that one's called. That's not it because like those guys are like robots when you're playing. So that's not it. It's something different, but I don't know what it is.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so did you ever play Tecmo Super Bowl or Tecmo Bowl?
I played Tecmo Bowl. I
Who
really.
was your go-to team? Did you go with the Bears, the hometown?
Oh no, I did Oakland or what?
Oakland, yeah.
Or no, L.A. Whatever it was in there, just because of the Bo
The
Jackson
Raiders,
shoot.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so that was there were. I played Tecmo Super Bowl, not Tecmo Bowl, but they were basically the same. Yeah, there were four cheating teams. It's the Raiders for Bo Jackson, and then Philadelphia and Houston both had quarterbacks that could just break out and run anytime you wanted. Philadelphia had Randall Cunningham, who was just Eagles QB1. He wasn't part of the Players Union or something, so his name didn't get on the game. And then Houston had Warren Moon. So both of those guys would just basically take off anytime you needed them to. And then San Francisco was my go-to team, and they were. I've learned in my adulthood that they were probably a cheating team too, because you could just throw a bomb from Joe Montana to Jerry Rice on every play, and it would be complete like 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah. Basically.
But yeah, there was most of that game involved cheating, and it was who could cheat better than the other person.
Uh huh. I mean, seriously, it was. I mean, if you really look at really any type of NES games, that's basically what it was. It was who found the cheat faster and
Hmm.
exploited it.
Yeah, or who happened to read the Nintendo Power magazine to learn the one secret and is not going to tell anyone.
Mm-hmm. Nope, you're right.
Speaking of football, just a tangent for a minute. Your Bears are looking pretty good at this point.
I'm knocking on wood.
Yeah,
All I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say one thing is that the Bears. See, what are we? Are we going into week 4? Or are we going into
it's
week
week.
5?
We're going into week 5. This will actually post during like week 7 probably, so we'll be a little
Okay.
bit behind on this, but hopefully the Bears can sustain till then, so we're not completely talking out of our ass.
You realize that um, we should have beaten Green Bay.
Yep.
Should have. Period. I mean, if we came out and played the way that we played the first half, the second half against Green Bay, um, and I'm going to tangent into something else, but we'll make it really fast. If you would do that, Green Bay would have had no chance. I mean, just absolutely no chance. In fact, I think, and this gets into my second point, they would have pulled Rodgers out. If we,
and they probably needed to anyways.
Yeah, and I think honestly, it's extremely irresponsible right now that they're allowing Rodgers to play, because God knows, I guarantee you, he's got a tore something in there.
Yeah, we talked about this on this week's episode of a podcast about football, that Rodgers is definitely playing hindered at this point, and I mean the Bears are responsible for that. And like you said, had the Bears been able to finish that game, they're 4-0 right now. The Bears, honestly, minus Mitchell Trubisky, look like the best team in the North Division right now. The Vikings are good, but they haven't been playing up to their potential. The Packers are playing with a hindered Aaron Rodgers, which is not good.
No, I think the best part about it is, and then we can get back to video games, is that with Nagy becoming the coach, the new coach, Gus getting a new quarterback, and then obviously beefing up that defense. Mac was the best pickup.
Yes.
Period. In the whole offseason of any team in the NFL, that was the best pickup for any team. I just want people to look at Chicago and say, "Oh shit, we got to play Chicago," or Chicago's coming to us.
They'll do that until Mitchell Trubisky gets the ball in his hands.
Well,
he's a problem.
He looked pretty awesome. He
threw 6 touchdowns against a tired Bucs team. You're right.
Yes, against a tired Bucs team. Well, let's just put it this way: Trubisky reminds me of one player that started out looking exactly like him, and he's a little bit more north.
Not Tim Tebow?
No. He's a little bit more north. The guy.
Favre?
No. Well, Brett Favre's replacement.
No. Yeah.
He has the same presence that Aaron Rodgers did when he was younger, and he is damn accurate like Aaron Rodgers.
I am not an Aaron Rodgers fan.
Me neither. I am not either.
You're bred.
I'm a Bears fan.
Yeah, you're not allowed to be. I from an objective point of view, I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan because of his general attitude towards life and his teammates.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's an asshole. I mean, big time. He's a big asshole, and if anybody wants to be
very talented, but I think that attitude hurts his team. Like if he was even had Tom Brady's attitude, Tom Brady's an asshole too, but he's not an asshole to his
Tom
teammates.
Brady also has 6 rings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he can
be an asshole.
Football wise, he's just there to play.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers has something to say every week about whatever's going on, and can't shut his mouth and just play. And he deliberately calls out his coaching staff and teammates and all this other stuff. And it's like, dude, just shut up.
Yep.
You're hurting your team.
I like it even more. No, it's just like I said, Trubisky, he's extremely accurate. And if he can keep that accuracy and then start to become a smart quarterback, a smart NFL quarterback. Let's put it that way. A smart NFL quarterback. I think he's going to be very dangerous.
And use his feet when he needs to and not as a bailout, basically.
Correct.
Well, I mean, it would be as a bailout when he needs to, but not. I made one read and now I need to run. It's you make 3 or 4 reads, nothing's open, now you run.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, your team's looking up. I'll give you that.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. I like
back to video games. Sorry, all of the people who came to listen to video games and had to sit through that dreadful sports talk. We're off of it now.
Yeah, off of that. Oh wait, no, it would be your second game for the NES.
Tecmo Super Bowl. That was it.
Oh yeah. Okay, good. You're right. I got in football. Let's just start that over again. Okay, on the Bears. No, I'm only kidding. My third game for the NES. And I know that, and we can talk about it a little bit later because I know we have another part of this for this segment of part 2 with Super Mario Brothers 3, and we can.
Yes, we are. Later. We're gonna do Mario Corner at the end. We're not actually covering Mario in this part, but I will agree that Super Mario 3 was top tier game.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first ones that I found out about the secrets and immediately wanted to go home and try. Like Super Mario Brothers 1. Everybody knew about the warp zone ahead of time. The first time you played the game and you were playing with somebody else, they're like, "Oh, there's a warp zone. You gotta jump on the brick and get to the end."
Yeah. No,
But with Mario 3, there were so many secrets that every time you played with somebody new, you learned a new secret.
exactly, and I'll get into the whole thing of why that's up there because it's very interesting. Or not, I don't want to call myself interesting, but my
I
thought
think you're
process
interesting.
for that game, um, it takes on a very interesting role in my head. So
Cool.
we'll talk
We'll
about
come back
that
to
within
Mario in a
Mario
little bit.
Corner.
Um, so I've got two more that I wanted to touch on. The first is this RC racing game, and it's called RC Pro Am.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That game was great. That was like the first kart racer because this was on
Yep,
NES. It was before Mario Kart on Super
yep.
Nintendo. It was you were
It was
basically controlling a
fast.
remote control car. Yeah, they were really fast. They had all these cool power ups you could get as you're driving around. I think there were something like 16 different courses you could play, and I only one time I made it through all 16 in my allotted time that I was allowed to play for that day. So that was always like a really cool jump in and out game. Run a couple races and then do something else.
Hmm.
I loved that game though. It was just you'd zip around that course. You'd have to miss the oil slick or the water puddle,
Yep.
and you could get missiles and bombs and take out your other cars. That was
And it was
just a
so
really
hard to try to aim because everybody was moving so fast.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you would move side to side really fast, so trying to aim those missiles or bombs to actually hit somebody was impossible. Or like there was one power up where your car would flash, and basically if you ran into somebody else, they'd spin out and be stuck for a second,
Yeah.
and you'd half the time you would go after somebody trying to get them to crash, and you'd crash yourself instead.
Exactly. I just remember that was just a fun game.
Mm-hmm.
I think I ended up playing that game one time when I was drunk, also.
That
Way
that
later
would be
on
a
in life.
great drunk. Yeah, when I was 11 and
Yeah, when I was
hammered,
11. Um, no,
that would be a really good drunk game. I'll
oh
give you
yeah,
that.
it's a great drunk game.
Because like you'd just be going crazy because you'd think you'd be doing these things and you wouldn't
Hmm.
actually be reacting the way you think you're reacting. And I could see it getting very frustrating, but also very fun. And if you have a couple of players playing, that would because you could do two or three players on it, I think. And then the computer players are always there. But that really, to
Yep.
me, that jumped off the kart racing and really captured what was so great about being able to play these games at home
Hmm.
and what's great about
Exactly.
kart racing games in general.
Yep.
Okay, you got another one?
Um, let's see. You said three. Let's see.
3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Yeah.
I would say the Simpsons, the Bart alien one, where the aliens,
Uh huh.
you had to find out if they were aliens. I think the only reason really because of that one is just I was just a Simpsons fan back then. I wasn't allowed to watch Beavis and Butthead, but I was allowed to watch The Simpsons.
I
So,
wasn't allowed to watch either.
oh
You're
really?
lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I mean, so that I would say that would be probably my fourth one. Would be that.
Yeah, those games are good. I never played those when I was a kid. Well, there's
Hmm.
several. Some are good, some are very bad, and we talked about one of the very bad ones on the last on part one. But I've revisited some of those Simpsons games, and those are very fun platformers that kind of get you into that world. None of them live up to the arcade platformer though, or the arcade beat 'em up. That
Oh
that
no,
one
not
was
at all.
always my favorite.
I always wish that they would have released that beat 'em up, but they never did.
They released it on PlayStation, so like you could buy it from the PlayStation Store on PlayStation 3, and I bought it. I mean, it was like $8 or whatever, and I bought it, and me and my wife played through it one night because you could do save points and just
Oh
keep
really?
restarting, keep restarting. That was a really fun night that we had playing through that game because that was both one of our favorites going back to when we would play in arcades.
Oh nice. Okay.
Yeah, great bonding experience. The
Yes.
only other video games we play together are Mario Party, and like in Mario Party, I'll always start off with the lead, and then somehow she comes back and like destroys me every time. Like I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna win this time, and the last three moves, she always somehow catches up and beats me by 3 coins or stars or whatever you have to collect. And I hate Mario Party. I'll have to buy it for Switch soon when it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it actually came out today.
Did it? Oh,
Or it came out yesterday. Came out yesterday, Tuesday.
I think I pre-ordered it. I better check on that.
Hmm.
Um. So yeah. So my last one is Metroid.
I never played Metroid.
That's
I've
another
seen it.
one
I've
that
never had a want to pick it up.
it's really good. There's a lot of power ups and a lot of cool stuff. I've never made it to the end. I know the ending that Samus is a girl. Oh my god, everybody freak out.
Yeah.
But
Spoiler.
yeah, I never made it to the end, but I have been when I have time to play Nintendo nowadays. I'll pick that one up. I take when I get my password at the end of like whenever I'm quitting or whenever I die, I take a picture of the password on my phone and it's saved to
Mhm.
the cloud so I never lose it. Because that was one for those of you who didn't play NES, a lot of games didn't have save points, but they would have passwords that you could. It basically whenever you died or whenever you wanted to leave the game, you'd get your password, and then the next time you'd start and you'd get all your power ups back, and be able to go through all the gates you had already opened.
Yep.
But I would have sheets of paper with passwords scribbled down, and then by the next time I'd go back to Metroid, that piece of paper was gone, or whatever. And so I never got a good consistent game because I would always lose my password and have to start over. Now I
Okay.
can take a picture, save it to the cloud.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Google Drive.
I would say my last one, it has to be Contra, the original
Okay.
Contra. Just
Another
because,
one with the 30 lives
yeah,
cheat code.
That was just because that was one of the other games that I thought everybody owned. Like everybody owned Contra.
I
Everybody knew
have
the
never
code.
played. I'll take that back. I have played Contra recently. Never played it as a child.
And we played it, and I would go over by my cousins. I go over by my friends. My friends come over by me, and we always play Contra. We got to, and then the levels just kept repeating after a while, so it was just like, okay, so.
And everybody knows the Contra code.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, actually,
It's burned into our brains.
correct. But remember, it's the Konami code.
The Konami code, yeah.
And where did it actually, where it actually originated from? What game? Because Contra wasn't the first game.
At one point in my life, I knew. At this point in my life, I don't. We won a trivia night one time because this was like the bonus question at the bar trivia, and somebody on my team knew the answer.
Yeah.
But I don't know the answer.
It is Gladius.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, you guys learned something.
Or
here
no,
in the
not
podcast
Gladius.
about
That's a sword.
something.
Galactus. That was the name of it.
Galactus.
Yep. So I would say Contra would be that one. Are we moving on to Super Nintendo?
Super Nintendo.
Super
I'm good with
Nintendo.
that.
Let's see. My first favorite game of all time on Super Nintendo was NBA Jam.
Yep.
And I think
Got that on my list.
I think I talked about that one the last time. I actually got to the point where I wore out a controller's buttons because I played it so much.
So did you? There were cheat codes in NBA Jams, but they weren't really an NBA Jam. But it wasn't really cheats; it was unlocking characters. Did you know those codes when you played it, and did you use them?
I knew one, and that was Air Dog. It was air, and then when you hit the last button, you hit all the buttons and up.
And then you got to play basically with Airbud.
Air,
I didn't know that one.
No, it was this kid. I don't know who it was, but it was this kid. But this kid would just jam it all the way. Like you could jump from like the free throw line, and he would slam dunk. Like he was unstoppable with slam dunks. That's all it was. It wasn't the dog or anything like that. It was just Airbud or Air Dog. So.
Yeah, I remember you could play with Will Smith, I think, if you entered Prince or something like that.
Yeah.
There was Bill Clinton. I'm trying to look it up right now, who else you could play with. Bill Clinton, Al Gore. Trying to find. I don't know who that is. Don't know who that is. Dan Weasel Feinstein. Don't know.
Yeah, you had, you had Clinton. Marv Albert you could play as.
Yeah, Warren Moon, Clinton. Apparently.
Yep.
Air Dog. There he is.
Carol the Blaze Jowski.
Well, and there were a lot of different versions of this too, because there was like tournament version and there was a lot of cool stuff you could do on NBA Jam that I never knew. I never knew any of the codes, but like that was always like the secret everybody would tell you. Oh, did you know you could play with Will Smith from Fresh Prince?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Well, Reptile, Sub-Zero, and Raiden were in it too.
In NBA Jam?
Yep.
They were?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep, you can play as those. Um, but that was tournament edition.
Hmm.
As far as that goes, yeah, like we said, Bill Clinton was allowed in there. Yeah, no, there was so many. But no, Air Dog was who was this kid? I'm reading. I actually looked it up. So who was this kid and what he was doing in NBA Jam? He was probably the son of the producer. He was the son of the producer or programmer.
There we go.
Yeah. So I mean, that's who he was.
And they made
This
him.
little
They
kid.
basically did the thing where in NBA Live in later years you would create yourself and give all 99. They did that with the producer's kid, basically.
Yep. Yep. They did that. And then I remember like the other last like cheat, or I don't want to say it was a cheat, but it was more like a secret.
Hmm.
Was they said supposedly if you could dunk 13 times in the first quarter, you could break the backboard. I never did
Yeah,
it.
I have seen a backboard broken. I don't think I did it, but I was witnessing a game when it happened. Nobody ever knew the combination what you had to do, but
Hmm.
I've seen it happen like one time.
But in the fourth quarter, it could happen at any time.
Oh, maybe that's what I've seen then.
Yeah. So the big thought, the big secret that people say was that if you dunk 13 times, you're able to break the backboard, which is incredibly hard to do. Um,
Yeah, it's really hard to move the ball and create spacing in NBA
yep,
Jam.
absolutely. Especially
And as
when especially when they can throw the elbows at you at any time.
exactly, as long as you're not at a turbo and you just keep
Hmm.
pushing people,
Hmm.
then Chris Mullen
So.
gets on fire and it's all over. Who's your go-to team?
Oh, it was the Bulls.
The,
It was the
did they
Bulls
have
and then Air
Jordan?
Dog.
They didn't have Jordan though, right?
No, Jordan was
Because that was his retirement time.
no. Actually, people get that mistaken. The reason that Jordan is not really in any games, because you could have picked up the NBA Live games and all of that, and
Hmm.
was that Nike owned Michael Jordan's name.
Ah, that's interesting. It's a
Yes.
fun fact.
Yeah, it's a fun fact. So, or Michael Jordan, or however it was ever his brand
Right.
was.
They owned basically his licensing rights, so he couldn't appear in games.
Correct, unless
That's
they paid
interesting.
him. Yeah, unless they paid him this astronomical fee, and so nobody ever did. So
Get
it
your
was
money,
always
MJ.
player 23. And in NBA Jam, it wasn't. There was no Jordan.
It was Pippen, Horace Grant, and B.J. Armstrong. I want to
DJ
say.
Armstrong. Yep.
I would go with the Shaq Penny Magic,
Hmm.
or the Timberwolves had a good team too. They had Isaiah Ryder and I can't remember.
Yep. I think I went with the Supersonics for a
Sonics
while
were
too.
good because I think Supersonics had Peyton Kemp and Detlef Schrempf. So if you
Yep.
needed to bring in a 3-point shooter late in the game, you could sub in Detlef Schrempf in the second half.
Yep. And
Oh,
he
good
he
day, good
almost never
times.
missed.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, so that one was on my list, and then probably my favorite that I like going back to it's a tie at the top. I'll go with this one first is Donkey Kong Country. I could go back to that any day of the week. I love playing that game. I the first time I beat it was on Game Boy Advance actually, but it was like just a straight port from the Super Nintendo game.
Hmm.
So I feel like I actually beat the Super Nintendo version. So I beat it on my Game Boy Advance, and then later in life, with my legally adjacent means, I beat it on Super Nintendo and felt much better about myself for really beating it. But Donkey Kong was just so cool. You could switch between Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong.
Hmm.
The levels were really deep and exciting. There were different things you could do in different levels. Like they'd have the train ride that you could do, and um, you'd get to ride the different animals, and there were all kinds of cool secrets to learn. I could go. I kind of want to go play Donkey Kong. All right, we're done with this podcast. I'm gonna go play
Yeah,
Donkey Kong.
we know what you're doing.
You're
Um,
going to play NBA Jam. I'm playing Donkey Kong.
Absolutely. Ironically, see now this is the funny thing. So, I a lot of gamers right now are kind of like sports games, or at least where I'm at with them. But ironically, some of my favorite, like so I did baseball, the last one. I got NBA Jam for the NES. My second favorite game on the Super NES was NHL '94.
That one was NHL 94 is honorable mention on my list. I don't have it on my actual list, but that was one that my brother and I would play endlessly. And then when we got our PlayStation, we would play NHL 98, where it introduced like you could stop and fight, and
Yep.
you could really see the player models a lot better when you're checking and doing things like that. So it was a lot more fun. But when we'd go to my friend's house with the Super Nintendo, we would always play. We'd probably play 3 games of NHL 94 before we played anything else.
Yep. I would go over and I would do the 1-on-1. And I would just get to
yeah.
I would, and God, I don't even know if they had something where you could set the timer for like forever. And all I would do is like, I would just see how many checks I can get on the guy, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was just so much fun just to play around like that.
You'd set up these, and that was cool. A thing you could do with older games is, because they only had so much playability, you would set up these challenges for yourself. Like, okay, I've beaten the game, or, you know, I can get an undefeated season in a sports game with my eyes closed. Let me figure out something else I can do. And you create those kinds of challenges for yourself, or you do like speed runs in Mario, things like that, which
absolutely
is really cool. That doesn't exist in games now because there's side missions, and like it's impossible to get 100% anyways. And
correct.
Well, it's not impossible, but it's a grind that by the time you get 100% and are able to create your own challenges, you're like, I'm sick of this game now.
It's very rare that you can find a game nowadays that you can speed run through.
Oh, that would be impossible, I think.
Yeah.
So my next one that was tied with Donkey Kong Country was the Aladdin game for Super Nintendo.
Okay.
I loved playing that game. You got to throw apples at all the bad guys. I always thought that was cool. It was just a great platformer, and it was really challenging. The different levels had lots of different types of platformer challenges. It wasn't just jump from platform to platform. It was these ones would move, and there would be villains strategically placed really well. They just did a really good job. They'd have bonus levels, things like that, and I still haven't beat it, but I'm as far as I've ever gotten, and I'm going to finish it someday. I'm going to win the hand of the princess.
I have my little girl, so and my wife, she loves Disney movies, so we actually watched Aladdin a couple months ago or whatever like that. We
just did Aladdin watch. I've been trying to talk, because that's my favorite Disney movie. I've been trying to talk. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old daughters. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to talk them into Aladdin, and they haven't wanted to watch Aladdin because it's not princesses. Like, Jasmine's there, but she's an afterthought. So it's always Frozen or Rapunzel or Princess and the Frog, all those things. And I finally got an Aladdin watch last weekend. I'm very excited about it.
Oh, nice.
So
sorry I cut you off.
No,
I was
you're
excited to talk about my Aladdin experience.
You're fine. So like, I didn't catch, like, I can't believe I never caught this joke until like I just watched it. Was, remember in the first song that he's singing, that Aladdin's singing, and the guards are chasing him, and the monkey Apu, or Abu, whatever his name is.
Yep.
Yeah, Abu grabs the sword, and the soldier's like, "He's got a sword!" And the other soldier's like, "You fool! We all got swords!"
It's great. Great moment.
It's like, I had never caught that, and I saw that, and I just started busting out laughing hysterically. And here's my wife like, "Why is that so funny to you?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but it is."
I will say I've recognized that joke all the 600 times I've watched the movie, but this last time I watched it, for some reason, it caught me. It's the same thing. Like, I laughed really hard at that joke, which I've always known it was there, but it never like struck me as that funny. And this time it I don't know why. It must just be in the guy's delivery that it hits 30-year-olds.
It's just so stupid.
Doesn't hit you when you're 10. It hits you when you're 30.
Exactly. So, so you had Aladdin. There wasn't really a lot of Super Nintendo that I played, because, like I said, I played so much NBA Jam. And at that point also, we were never the richest family. So, so when we got a video game, when I got it, I played the shit out of it, just because that's really what I was able to get,
Right.
I would say my last one, maybe I think I have another one, but this one was X-Men, and it was Mutant Apocalypse.
Is it Mutant Academy?
No, it's
that one's like PlayStation 2.
Yeah,
There's one where it's like a fighter with them, but
no, that's not it. This one you
this
actually
one's
you started out um and each you had I want to say 5 X-Men. It was Cyclops Beast, um, Wolverine, Gambit, and Psylocke. Yeah, so 5 of them.
yeah.
So
I think I've played this one.
so each one of them had their own scene that you had to get through. And then you went through a whole bunch of other things, and then out of nowhere, Apocalypse comes down, and you have to fight him. And I remember playing that. I played that, and I would beat it, and I'd start it all over again.
Yeah, that was a good one. I liked the along the same lines the X-Men arcade game that just straight beat 'em up, where I think it was Iceman, Cyclops, Gambit, and Nightcrawler that you could play with.
Okay,
I'd always
yep.
go with Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler's probably my favorite X-Man, I would say.
Yep.
Nightcrawler or Iceman, I like them both. But that one was always good. That one's another one that I've played recently all the way through and was happy that I beat it. Like that's just my goal in life, is to play every game I played as a kid and get all the way through it now.
Okay.
It'll take me the rest of my life, but I'm okay with it. Yeah, so my last one, we talked NBA Jam. We talked about the weird baseball game with the power-ups. And my last one, this one I didn't play as a kid, but it's one of my favorites that I've stumbled upon recently. It's Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage. It's just you can choose Spider-Man or Venom, and it's just to beat 'em up. And the eventual boss is Carnage, but I just love Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man games. For the time, it's actually a really good game, graphics wise. It looks a lot like. Did you ever watch the 1994 animated series? It looks almost just like that. The animation on it does, so it kind of brings back these memories of that show as I'm playing it. And I think the voice work is done by the same guy, so it's just a fun game to play through. And anytime I can get into Spider-Man's suit, I'm happy.
It really was. That's actually my last game that I was going to say.
Oh, awesome.
Was Spider-Man and Carnage, Maximum Carnage. I agree with you. It was a great just beat 'em up. You got to play Spider-Man and Venom, and yeah, it was a good game. So
yeah, it was cool. That was one of the first games I had played where you could play as the quote unquote villain too. Like you could play as Spider-Man or you could play as Venom, which is cool because usually it's just like you're defeating Venom. But now I guess in Marvel vs. Capcom you could play with some of the villains, but got to enjoy the story from the villain's point of view, I guess. I haven't gotten to actually defeat Carnage yet, but I'll get there.
You will. Someday.
Yeah, someday.
And then we should do a podcast
when I'm
about
65. Yeah, when I'm 65 and retired, I'm gonna knock all these games out. Just
There
wait.
you go.
35 years, we'll still be making a podcast about something. We'll come back. We'll talk about.
Honestly,
like
I
to
hope
defeat
you are. I
Me
hope
too.
you are. You'll be on like episode like 4086. But that would be
Yeah,
awesome.
my topics are gonna run real thin by then, I think. Sega Genesis, or did you have any more Super Nintendo?
I didn't have any Super Nintendo. I didn't.
Do you have anything for Sega Genesis?
Nothing for Sega. I never owned one. So I had games that I like to play. Like I always like the Sonic and all of that.
Okay,
But
so that was going to be my first question: is what's the best Sonic?
Sonic 2.
Yep, that's the correct answer. The complete wrong answer is Sonic 3.
Yes.
Sonic 1 is good. Sonic 2
Sonic
is
Knuckles.
great. No, well, I don't think Sonic 3 had Knuckles, because then there was Sonic and Knuckles, which I agree, Knuckles sucks, but like at least it brought a new aspect to the game. Sonic 3 just provided nothing and was weird.
Exactly.
But yeah, Sonic 2 is the correct answer. If anyone has a different answer, you're wrong, and feel free to talk about it with me, but you're wrong.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. We talked a lot about Mortal Kombat. I played Mortal Kombat more on Sega than like in the arcade, but we talked a lot about it on the arcade episode, so we don't have to go back into that. And then there was a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game that was, so for Super Nintendo there was one that was a fighter, but for Sega there was one that was a beat 'em up, not a platform, but just like a walking beat 'em up. That I liked that better than the fighting game.
Mhm.
Again, it's the same thing with Spider-Man Maximum Carnage and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Power Rangers were some of my favorite characters of the time, and just getting to be in their shoes for a couple hours was always fun.
Yep, I agree. I did play the Power Rangers, but I played it at a friend's house, and I think I played it like 2 or 3 times. So like I never was able to say, hey, I really really love this game, because I never like said, oh, I have to go out and get it. But I enjoyed
Mhm.
playing it when I did.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. One of my friends had it, and so I played it probably 3 or 4 times when I went to his house. Because a lot of times it would be me and my brother going over to somebody's house, and then we'd all three kind of have to rotate, and it would be more sports games or two-player games we'd play together. So I didn't get a lot of time to just sit there and play by myself the games I wanted to,
Yep.
especially because I was 2 years younger than them. So
So they beat you up if you tried.
I don't know about that, but. Um, that's pretty much. Oh, almost forgot the most important part.
Huh.
Mario Corner.
Oh, Mario Corner.
Yeah. Let's hear your Mario 3 defense.
My Mario 3. Okay, so so you remember how it was unveiled, right?
No.
Okay, so
It came with my Nintendo when we inherited it from where we inherited it.
oh, okay. So the first, so there was a movie with Fred Savage, the kid from the Wonder Years.
Yep.
And it was called The Wizard.
Yep.
Okay.
Good movie.
Yeah, great movie. So they would go around, and it was about getting this other kid to a gaming tournament. Okay, and I think was it his brother? I think it was, or something like that.
I thought it was him. I thought
No,
he
it
was the
wasn't
one
him.
going to the gaming tournament.
He was, but
okay.
it was like his kid brother that was the wizard.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
So they're like, we have a mystery game for everybody to look at and play, and the mystery game was Super Mario Brothers 3. Okay, because nobody else saw it.
So I watched this movie in 2012, so maybe that's why the significance of the Super Mario Brothers 3 unveiling was lost on me.
Mm-hmm.
I had known about Super Mario Brothers 3 for about 20 years by that time.
Mm-hmm. So I think that the really cool part about it was, and the thing that kind of caught my eye was, if you looked at the color of the first one, the background was black. And then Super Mario Brothers 2, God, we
That
have
doesn't
no
count.
idea what the hell was happening in that game.
It was a port of a Japanese game that they just stuck Mario on and changed the character models.
Yeah, like I really think that after I grew up and played that game, like the producers of that were like, we're on LSD, let's make a game.
It's kind of fun. Luigi can jump really high. You pick Princess Peach and just cheat your whole way through by flying.
Yeah, she could float. Yeah.
It took me so long to figure out how to beat Birdo, because you had to
really?
jump on the eggs. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had no idea. I would get stuck every time, and then one of my friends was like, "Oh no, you got to jump on the egg. You push B to pick it up, and then you throw it at him." I was like, "There's no way. Like it's that simple." I've been sitting here for days trying to figure this out.
I just never knew like why they went from mushrooms to onions.
Because they didn't change any of that. Because the story is that it was actually a Japanese port of a completely different game, and they just slapped Mario and the other characters on it, but they didn't change anything else in the game.
Huh.
So everything was, you had the onions or carrots, and the enemies were all completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got some iconic enemies. You got Birdo. You got Shy Guy out of there, I think. So.
Yep. So then I look at Super Mario Brothers 3, and the commercial that caught it was, there was one kid, and I don't know if he was holding it up or something, but as they start to pan away, it starts to show like the Earth, and like the Earth starts to be covered in the yellow. That's the yellow background of what now is iconic, to Mario. And then it was like the first Mario that I think the music got me, and it felt like there was once again there was feelings to it. Like they started developing the characters. Like Princess Peach is gone, and Bowser has these kids, and it has all these wands, and now
Toad tells you a story every time you find him at the wrong castle.
Correct. So you had that, and then I thought that it was like finally we start to see some of the lore, I guess. I guess lack for a better phrase, lore of Mario.
Well, it was cool you had like kind of an open world type map where you didn't have to play every level if you didn't want to. There were some that you could skip.
Correct.
It's better to play them all, but
and then you had the secrets, like obviously you could find the whistles. And then you had the frog suit. Now, do you remember the like, I don't know if you know the name of it, but the one where you looked like you were a bear?
That's not the Tanuki. The Tanuki suit's the raccoon tail, right?
That's what I'm talking about. The Tanuki suit.
Well, there's just the tail and ears that you can fly that you get in like the first level, and then there's the one
that's just the leaf.
Wraps you up in a whole. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you know what the secret with the one that wrapped you up in the whole furry thing was, right?
No.
If you press down and B, you turned into a statue.
I did not know.
Oh yeah,
I gotta go revisit. All right, so Donkey Kong and then Mario 3.
Yeah. So
we're gonna have a long night tonight.
But they never like explain that. Like why does that do that?
You had to figure out all of the like even the costumes. Like I never knew how any of them worked because I would always get the whistles and just go straight to the end. I would get the whistles and the 2 power-ups from the first 2 worlds, and that would be it. And I never beat it that way. I probably should have played more of the worlds and got more power-ups until recently when I'm like, well, I'm just going to play through it, through all the worlds. And I got the frog suit and the Tanuki suit and all that. I didn't have a manual or anything at this time to look at what the suit's powers are. So you're just there mashing buttons trying to figure things out.
Yep. And then I remember just a side thing is that I actually had a shirt, and God, I had to be 21, 22 years old, where it was a Mario Tanuki suit shirt. So like nice. It had Mario with a Tanuki suit on. And
that was before it was cool to wear Nintendo and superhero shirts.
Absolutely.
Too. Good job.
And I remember
you're a trendsetter.
I was trying to be. Yeah, right. You see a picture of me, I'm no trendsetter.
That's why it's a podcast. We don't have to look at anyone. Nobody has to see what we actually look like.
But I remember I got stopped one time where like there was a little girl that asked me, like, she goes, "Who is that?" I'm like, "That's Mario." And she's just like, "That's not Mario." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's Mario." But
that's a good story. I always joke with my 4-year-old daughter that because she's like really into princesses and all this stuff, and I always joke like, "Oh, your birthday's coming up. Do you want to have a Power Rangers party?" Or like we'll be in the toy section at Target and we'll be going through and I'll be like, "Oh, Emily, look, it's a Power Rangers toy. Do you want this?" And she's all like, "No, Dad, nobody likes Power Rangers." And they just keep telling me that nobody likes Power Rangers, and I disagree.
No, that's wrong. Everybody loves Power Rangers.
But
that's where you got to turn to her and be like, "Oh, you like princesses? So you're going to be the best princess, Princess Peach."
Well, that's true too. She does like Princess Peach. She'll ride for Princess Peach.
Okay.
But so she got me for one of my birthdays. I think it was last year. Because I'm always talking about doing Power Rangers, she got me like one of the little surprise bags that they have with the Power Rangers in it. But it's like one of the new Power Rangers that nobody's ever seen. I was like, "Oh, this is nice, but this isn't a Power Ranger." I didn't tell her that. I don't have the heart to tell her. I just said thank you, and it's great that she was thinking about how much I like Power Rangers.
There you go. That's all that matters, man.
Yeah, I understand that. But seriously, get me real Power Rangers. Get your head out of your ass, Emily. She doesn't listen.
I'm not.
She's gonna listen to this in like 10 years and be like, "What the hell is that,
jerk?" So I would say so like to me that was like the first time I played a Mario game and I was like, "Oh, okay, there's a little bit more deeperness to Mario now."
Mm-hmm. And there were so many secrets to find, and you had to find them on your own. Like, because no one knew all of them. In Super Mario Brothers 1, everybody knew all of the secrets. You knew after the 4th pipe, you stop, you get the 1-up. In the 2nd level, you get the 1-up, in the dungeon.
Correct.
On top of that.
On the top, like, people didn't realize you could run on the screen. Like, right. Run on top.
And then you run on top of there and you get to the warp zone. Yeah. Everybody knew everything.
Yep.
In Super Mario 3, every time you played with a new person, you learned a new secret. You could duck behind the white blocks to fall behind and get the first whistle. You could fly up to the top in the first castle to get the second whistle.
And technically, that's all the whistles you needed to get to the last level.
Right. So you never search for any more, or I never search for any more. But there, and I'm still discovering things as like I play it now. I'll discover new secrets every time. I try to stay away from guides because I like stumbling upon the things myself.
Oh, let's see.
I know I could probably download a walkthrough online and beat it in like an hour, but that's not fun.
I have 1, 2, 3. In my whole life, I've bought 4 guides, and actually 2 of them were given to me. So I got one for a Kingdom Hearts game, I got one for a Final Fantasy game, and then I got given as a gift the Skyrim because that thing's like 800 pages, and then I don't know how I got it for free or it was cheap, whatever it was. When The Witcher 3 came out, the version that I bought, the guy was like, "Hey, we have this hardcover guide for like next to nothing." I think I ended up paying like $5 or $7 more extra, and I got it. So those are really the only guides I've ever looked at for a game.
I don't think I've ever used a paperback guide, but I will say, in early internet days, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 times, I would go on and try and find cheat codes or walkthroughs, and we'll talk about this in part 3, but 007 Nightfire, I had printed out basically every cheat code and the walkthroughs for those levels because I would get lost on a lot of them, and now I can make it through. Not anymore, but at the time I could make it through with my eyes closed.
There you go.
But yeah, I've never been like I'd much rather figure it out on my own. There are some like the Riddler trophies in the Arkham games. There's some that like I just can't figure out the puzzle and I have to look it up, but I won't. I wouldn't be able to read an 800-page walkthrough of a game.
No, I know. And that was the thing. It's like I had the guides, but except for the Final Fantasy and the Kingdom Hearts, like the other 2 that were given to me, like I would use it as reference, but like I never like I wouldn't say like I ever read it to say, okay, this is how I have to go, and then this is what I had to do. But I would go, like, if I would go to this area, I would look up the area in the game and be like, oh, okay, can I?
Right.
There's 4 treasures that I need to find here. So I would go over and that's what I would do.
Yeah, so, I'll usually I'll jump online and do pretty similar things for the most part for guides. The only one that I could see going back to and using a guide would probably be Legend of Zelda, because that map is so massive and such a difficult maze to figure out. And if you make the wrong turn, you're stuck in this endless loop that you don't know how to get out of. Where it's just the same place over and over again. Another question on Mario Corner. What is your favorite Mario sport? Not Mario Kart doesn't count. So tennis, golf. He played soccer one time. Don't think he's ever played basketball.
I don't remember a basketball game.
No. I would play that, though. Anyway, what's your favorite Mario sport?
You know, I never really ever played the sports game, so I would say the one that I did play that I actually liked is the new tennis one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've always liked the Mario Tennis. Those are probably my favorites because you get really cool tennis-y power-ups. And it kind of reminds me, kind of like that baseball game where you have these special power-ups that only work in certain situations.
There's a, what is it? There's a spoof video, I think it's done by Dorkly, and it's Luigi quits being Mario's wingman. And like Mario's going through or whatever like that, and Luigi's like, hold on, and he's talking, and I know that's not an Italian accent, but he's like, hold on, and yeah, and he's like, I've been with you all the time, and I never get the girl. You always get the girl. Why do I never get the girl? He's like, and I've been through you with the baseball and the medical school and the go-karting and the tennis.
Dr. Mario.
Yeah. And the tennis, and he just starts listing off all like the other random, and he's like, and what does Luigi get? Luigi gets nothing. He goes, you got that game where you went into the haunted house unless you were still scared of the dark. It's
Mario's an all-time asshole brother, and
really
being the little brother, Luigi's always been my favorite out of the 2.
Uh, but oh god, it's so funny. If you just check it out, he ends up quitting at the end of it, and he's like, "I'm going to Sega." So like Luigi goes off, he goes over, and the next scene is he goes up to Tails, and he's like,
Mhm.
"So this princess, she a single?" And Tails is like, "You wouldn't believe this, but Sonic, all he wants to do is save woodland creatures."
Yeah, good
So
old Sonic. It's
oh, it
very
was so,
wholesome.
God, it's so funny. It's so funny. So
And then, what's your go-to Mario Kart game? Which version of Mario Kart
oh, it has to be the original.
on Super Nintendo?
On Super Nintendo, the original, nothing beats the original. That was the predecessor for all of it. That I mean, if I wanted to do more, I like the Switch version of it. But I
Well, the
think
Switch version's good because you can go back and kind of play
those older
those
ones,
tracks.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, if we had to pick and say, okay, the only game that we can play is a Mario Kart game, but yet we have 12 coolers of beer and we're gonna have pizza and all of that. It's like hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do the original and play the shit out of the original.
I'm partial to. I like the GameCube version, but that's probably not my favorite. That was the one where you had two people on your cart
Mm-hmm.
and you could switch them back and forth. I liked that. And I think my favorite is probably the Wii version because when you play a racing game, playing video games, you're steering with your body anyways, and it actually helped in the Wii's case.
Mm-hmm.
Now with the Switch, I turned that feature off, but it was kind of cool that it existed.
I hated the Wii version. I hated
Really?
it. I couldn't stand it. I could not stand it. Um, like to me, the controls were just so clunky.
They
Like,
were.
so
I'll give you
clunky.
that.
And then they're like, "Oh, here we're going to give you this wheel thing that you put
I never used the wheel. I would just hold the controller.
yeah, like, and I think that was the other thing that kind of threw me off about the Wii was that it was so like all of those sports games that you could do with that and the Mario stuff. It was so glitchy.
In retrospect, the Wii is terrible, but I
yes,
think it led to something that can be good. Like it brought motion controls to a place where they can be useful, but they shouldn't be the crux of every game you have.
and it was one thing. It was a C word that beat all the other consoles out.
Cheap.
Yep, it was cheap.
Yes, it was. The only thing that I wished for on the Wii was a Star Wars game where I could use my Wiimote as a lightsaber. Never happened.
I think everybody's been trying to do that since motion control, and the only thing that comes close to that is this game coming out, or it's actually out right now for PC, but it's coming to PlayStation VR. It's called Beat Saber.
Mm-hmm.
So
So when PlayStation VR was first announced, I wanted to play like an Arkham game on it, and after dabbling in VR games a little bit, I've decided that that's probably a terrible thing, and I don't want to go anywhere near the PlayStation VR now.
I have it. There's been a couple of really good games. There's one called Starblood Arena, which is really, really good. If you can stomach it, it's a very big motion sickness one because you're basically in a craft and you are just fighting other spaceships. So like you can spin upside down and all that. So if you get motion sickness easy,
yeah, I'm out on that one.
That one. The Resident Evil is amazing, absolutely amazing. Scares the shit out of me.
I could see how the horror games would be, and that like because I've had several of the cell phone VR sets, and I even had the Samsung Galaxy one because it came free with my phone, so that one was even integrated perfectly, and it was still like everything's a little clunky and you don't ever move the way you want, but there was a big push for like the horror games on that, and there are all these indie horror games where it's basically just jump scare after jump scare, and I get that.
And I will say the last one is it is the only way that this game should have ever been played, and that's Skyrim. The Skyrim they did was amazing.
That would be pretty cool. Have you played the Arkham game on the VR?
Yeah, I did. I don't
think it would. Looking at it now, I don't think it would be as good as when I first conceptualized it in my thoughts. Just the way I've seen VR play itself out, and the way, like it would be too hard to embody that.
I'm not a novel game guy, so like a lot of those games that feel like it's a novel, like you're just following a book story. I'm just not. I'm not huge with it.
Yeah, I could see that. All right. That's what we got for part 2. Did you have anything else for this generation?
No, I think that would be about it. I think it, like I said, I think it was a great step forward, and it laid, it was building on the foundation that the previous generation did, and it just started to like solidify and really kind of harden the thought of that a game console, a home game console, is a thing that will be in homes from now on.
Yes, it definitely did. And we're gonna in part 3 we're going to explore how that happened a little more. So stay tuned. In another month we will have part 3. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to part 1 now. Check out the Save Point podcast in the meantime, and check out everything else that A Podcast About Something has to offer in the meantime. But we'll be back in about a month. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me again.
Hey, this is an ad about something. Audible, to be exact. Audible is a great way to catch up on all your favorite stories while on the go. Audible includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers. I've been using Audible for years on my daily commute to catch up on some of my favorite fantasy stories, including Harry Potter, The Once and Future King, and A Song of Ice and Fire, narrated by the Guinness World Record holder Roy Dotrice. I also love getting Audible's recommendations. Just recently, Audible recommended that I read Armada and Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and Spectacularly narrated by Will Wheaton. I listened to both of these stories and loved them both because the narration by Will Wheaton just made the stories even more enjoyable and immersive than if I would have read them on my own. So if you love books, I've got some great news for you. Right now, for my listeners, you can get any audiobook you want from Audible for free when you sign up for your free trial of Audible using audibletrial.com/apodcastaboutsomething. Again, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/apodcastaboutsomething. Thanks for listening.
And now it's time for the 2-minute ISO.
But first, listen to this promo from one of my fellow podcasters.
Hi, we're the Grave Girls from Grave Girls Podcast. I'm your host, Hawthorne.
And I'm Amaryllis. Every week we watch a different horror film, and I find a scary story that goes with it that will definitely leave you shaking in your boots.
And if you aren't wearing boots, my true crime case and murder will scare the pants off you.
And then you'll just be naked, and that's just a fun time.
So listen to us on SoundCloud and iTunes.
And follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Don't forget to check out our website at grave-girls.com.
We love you all in case we die.
Bye!
As many of you probably know from listening to the previous episode or the Seinfeld megacast that we did last week, I'm a bit of a Seinfeld fanatic, and one thing that comes up on an episode of Seinfeld is I believe it was in the Red Dot episode in season 3, I want to say. But George asked Jerry, what exactly is a bender? And like alcoholics or people who drink, they go on a bender. And that always struck me, and I always wondered, yes, what exactly is a bender? I don't know the answer to that. Why do they call it that? I really did like Jerry's answer in the episode, which is the guy just gets really drunk and bends things, which, not true, but a fun answer, which I'm going to choose to keep believing because I did some research. I found the real answer, and I'm going to stick with Jerry's answer of guy gets really drunk and likes to bend things. So, here today on A Podcast About Something, you are going to learn something. A bender is, it's called that. They call it a bender because it's based on an obsolete British coin. The sixpence was sometimes known as a bender because it was made out of silver. And it could be actually bent. In the old days, one bender, 1 sixpence, one of these silver coins could buy you enough booze to pretty much stay drunk for a couple days. So basically anytime someone would binge in this way, they called it a bender. We don't really use this term anymore either. I mean, the British coin is obsolete, as I said. And nobody really calls it a bender anymore. When somebody drinks way too much, we just say they drank way too much, or they binge drinking, or, there's all these other terms that we use now. But I always thought that was kind of interesting, and that, that question pops in my head, and I wanted to look it up and share the answer with all of you. So that's what a bender is. If anyone ever asks, now you know. You have some more useless trivia to add to your back pocket, which I always love to have. Or you can just tell them, it's when somebody gets really drunk and bends things. That's what I'm going to go with most of the time. Thank you for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at APA something. Check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/a-podcast-about-something. If you don't want us to commit to a monthly donation, you can always just send money PayPal if you want to support the show. Any support really helps. Again, goes towards hosting costs, equipment upgrades, things like that. So any support always helps. You can send PayPal or Patreon. You can send PayPal to a podcast about something at gmail.com. You can also send feedback through emails to a podcast about something at gmail.com. And as always, if you're on iTunes, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. The ratings and reviews really help us climb up in the rankings, and it allows more eyes to get on us if we land on that new and noteworthy page. So anything you can do will help. We'll be back next week with more great stuff, and every week for the foreseeable future. Thanks for listening. Stay classy.